Hey, what's up, guys? It's Joe from Ad Astra Archives. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about slabs. My very minimal amount of experience getting cards graded through different companies, what I think about the slabs, their look and feel in hand, their collectability, their resaleability, and just overall, where do I think that the best value is to be had in grading. Um, I should probably note that uh, this is happening after PSA shut down, open submissions until July 2021. And there are a couple other changes in the grading industry that I'll probably speak to. But just to know that, I'm recording this in a time where submissions to PSA are impossible unless you're doing their walk-in service or their Super Express or whatever it's called for $300 a card. So with that, let's kick it off with just how the cards look in hand. So like I mentioned, I've had a chance to grade cards with each of these companies just in the last year. I've been collecting my entire life, but never really submitted cards myself. It's actually funny to think about, collecting since I was 8, stopped kind of through high school, college, picked it up again back in 2017. And at the time, you go fill out, contact me or create an account with Beckett or with PSA, and they had sales reps that would actively almost beg you. I was being followed up with constantly from PSA and BGS to, please sign up for a silver membership or, bulk submit and we'll cut the rates. We'll do whatever it takes to get you to send in, at least 20 cards at a time. So it's almost hilarious to think about that business model today when these grading companies are all being just completely overloaded and can't handle the business they're getting. So just shows you how hot the market currently is, how quickly things can change, and I gotta wonder, those business dev folks from those companies are at this point probably focused on I don't know, maybe large scale breakers or even card manufacturers, as opposed to following up with average people like me that just have a handful of cards that they want to get graded. But anyway, I first submitted to BGS to get a couple Mahomes cards that I bought graded using their system. And then I now have about 10 PSA orders, just stuff that I want to flip, a few things that are probably PC, but mostly stuff that I intend to kind of resell either short term or long term. I guess really all of it's long term because those 10 PSA orders, I don't think I'll see those cards for another year and a half, and I submitted back in February. So it's going to be a while before I actually get my hands on any of that good stuff. But in the meantime, wanted to go ahead and just share with you my thoughts. So let's start with design. Um, the design of the card, I think, is squarely best with HGA from my perspective. Yeah, I'm just talking about the label. I mean, you compare, PSA is obviously the industry standard. It's where you're going to get the most resale value. And, folks that grade through PSA, at least for the past year or so, have been just earning cash hand over fist, sending in, low-end crap, really sending in everything. But of course, the company's overloaded by low-end crap, and that's why they're shutting down operations. But anyway, nothing really excites me about the PSA label itself. And especially if you go back to their old labels, I mean, they're just really boring. They look like their brand identity is kind of cool and it's fairly iconic in the collector's world. But, I'm a dude that's in marketing and advertising. This label looks like something that I probably could have designed myself and using like a word processing file. So, I don't think PSA is going to win a ton of awards in my book from just having the best looking label. I think second to HGA. So here's a look at HGA. You can tell the font is much more bold and it's modern as opposed to PSA, where again, it looks like, the label was designed maybe in 1991 and then just hasn't been addressed since. So there's good and bad things about having a modernized label like HGA, right? Some folks, it's going to look like, you know, a little kid designed it. Maybe I've actually seen comments even on my own page about, you know, it looks like it's made for kids, and, you know, sure, that's fine. I just think it's easier to read. I love the subgrades. I like how some of these other companies are going off of the BGS model and including subgrades. I prefer having subgrades on my graded cards. I think that's seems to demonstrate more effort on the part of the grading company to actually include and consider multiple aspects, whereas PSA, not a lot of transparency, no idea. I mean, I think, you know, you can eyeball it and call it what you want, but yeah, that's a topic for another day. So overall, I like the label for HGA. The other thing that I really like is the design of the slab. You can kind of get closer to the camera here. You can tell that the slab itself is bigger than PSA. It's a little bit taller. The card is a little bit more spaced out between the borders and the edges. It's got rounded corners or rounded edges like the PSA slab does. And it's also, I believe it might be a little bit thicker on 35-point cards. You know, it looks to be a little bit thicker. So the slab, the plastic slab itself compared to PSA feels more substantial. And I like that, especially for, you know, I'll get to this in a minute, but HGA I'm mostly using for PC cards because I don't really care about resale value and because they have a hard limit on what you can actually submit. So the process is painfully slow and whatever at this point. So just not worried about that. But let's compare the HGA to BGS. All right, so the BGS slab is about the same width as HGA slab. HGA is still going to be taller. It's going to be a little bit longer. What I don't like about the BGS plastic is that it's got kind of sharp corners and edges. And in eBay listings and even with cards that I purchased from multiple different places, you'll find that these edges chip. You know, you'll have people calling that out in their eBay listings that the slab itself is damaged in some way. And I think it's just because, you know, they're not rounded like PSA and HGA, so there's just more, and it's sharp corners here, so there's just more of an opportunity for it to crack and chip away with just, I don't know, just handling the cards. So however, I would put BGS as sort of second place in my opinion with regards to the label design. Love, obviously, the kind of gold bronze for gem mint, and, you know, I don't own any black label cards, but I'd imagine those look just absolutely incredible in hand. However, I do hate 8.5 and below. I can tolerate BGS 9s, the silver label. In fact, I think I've got an example of one of those here. So here's the silver label for cards graded 9. This is a recent Tom Brady Topps Chrome pickup. So I'm cool with this, but once you get down to 8.5, especially the older BGS 8.5, where it's that really gross white label with a bunch of noise in the background. I don't even know what it is, if it's their logo or something. But that looks not good. So if your card can grade a 9 or above, I think you're in a pretty good spot with BGS. Moving on to SGC, you know, the cards here are relatively even with regards to how long they are. They're about the same thickness. I think HGA actually still has a slightly thicker slab. I just do not like the look of SGC slabs generally, especially for modern cards. Like if you're getting, you know, this was just like a cheap eBay pickup from a couple months ago that, you know, at some point I'll just put on auction or trade away or something, maybe if I'm looking to add some low mid-end PC stuff at a show or something. But I have no interest in holding on to an SGC slab, except for, like, if this were a Pete Maravich rookie or Wilt Chamberlain rookie card or some, 1913 baseball card, I think SGC actually looks great with vintage cards. In fact, I would not send vintage to HGA. I think it would look really goofy and just be a mismatch of like beautiful antique card design with this loud modern label. So SGC wins for vintage from my perspective, in my humble opinion. But for modern cards, no, I will not be submitting to SGC, and I think we'll talk about some of the other issues that they've had recently just in their business practices. So again, just to kind of recap, HGA seems to have just about the tallest and the thickest slab, so it feels substantial in hand. It's got the most modern label design, which you can also now customize for an extra $10 if you're actually able to get a submission in. And so to me, from a design perspective and a card in hand perspective, and if you're like me and you have a PC that you just want to hold on to forever, HGA is what I'm going with. One other thing that I wanted to bring up is Gem Elite, or companies like GMA. Now, these slabs, I think objectively just don't look super great. They feel weird in hand. They're like thicker in the middle than they are on the edges, which is kind of strange. I don't think collectors tend to see these as the gold standard for grading accuracy. Let's see, what this has a 9.5 for centering, and it looks off center both on the top and right side here pretty obviously, so that seems like a generous grade. But I did, when I got back into collecting, I did pick up a couple of GMA and Gem Elite slabs in 10 grade, either pristine or Gem Mint, because I wanted to crossover grade them with PSA. I basically, PSA at one time offered a crossover grading service where you send them, slabs from other companies. You don't have to crack them out yourself if you don't want, and they'll do it. And in fact, I've got 2 orders sitting in PSA. I was able to make it in before they cut the service completely. So I'll do a video at some point to show the results of that, just to see how accurate or consistent the grades are from company to company. But, GMA, Gem Elite, I don't know much, if anything, about their business. I don't see any new Gem Elite slabs kind of rolling around on modern cards, so maybe they're even out of business at this point. If I were you or just the average collector, I wouldn't send cards into any of these sort of bottom tier companies. It's just, I don't see, these always sell for way less, even at much higher grades compared to PSA or BGS. So just something to consider. So let's talk about resale value. So that's important to a lot of people, not necessarily me, though we'll get into some of the orders that I place with PSA, but I think even if you're just a collector that wants to have this massive PC and, wants to be able to pass it on to their children, so on and so forth, you still probably care about the value of your cards. So my first recommendation is get them slabbed by somebody. I think even if you want to spend, whatever, $10 a card and do it with this company, you're going to preserve the card in a way, in theory, that is better than a top loader or a magnetic, case or something shoved in a shoebox. I think the demand will only increase for graded cards, and collectors, flippers love to crack these cases and resubmit them. So I think even if you're selling someday at a lower value, it pays to get certain things kind of graded. From a resale value, it's clear that PSA is king. There is, just from purely flipping, back in 2017 when I got back into the hobby, PSA was known for giving out 10s more easily. And 10s are kings, that's what folks chase. It's what they hope for. That's what they carefully, kind of review their own card, and their entire business is built on raw card review. ComC offers this. Multiple group submitters offer raw card reviews. So everything is geared toward getting that PSA 10. And PSA 10s are what sell, and they're what really, I think, drive the modern card market. So it makes sense that that's what you want ultimately. Now, there's a cool graphic, and I'll see if I can include it in the video. If not, maybe I'll find it, and if you want to comment, I'll link it to you or something. But it basically shows the sale value between BGS, Beckett, and PSA. A 10 Beckett, I can't remember if gold labels are pristine or just still gem mint. By the way, a 10 Beckett will actually sell more on the whole than a PSA 10, just comparing grades to grades that way. And certainly a black label will outsell everything. Black label is a completely flawless card. It's all 10 subgrades. And, if you were one in a million people who submits a card and gets that black label, you'll be sitting pretty, because it will literally outsell everything. But I think from a flipping perspective, PSA is where you want to go. For me, I will continue to go to BGS for sort of bigger cards. I don't just mean size-wise, but cards that are also autographed and, kind of RPAs, National Treasure, flawless RPAs, or, cards where you're also wanting an autograph grade, and you think the autograph is clean. BGS to me is still king for those types of cards. And, anecdotally, I do see, we recently saw that a record was broke with a Luca one of one. I think it was just a patch auto card from National Treasures. The buyer of that card, paid $4.6 million or whatever, sent it to BGS. So that should tell you that, some of the biggest cards in the industry are still going to BGS. It's the oldest company, and, there's something to be said about having your card evaluated with the granularity of subgrades. So BGS to me are sort of long-term holds, especially with some of my Mahomes stuff. My high-end Mahomes, National Treasure, Patch Auto rookies, I sent those to BGS. I did not want a PSA slab on those. I think, but I also, I didn't want to send them to HGA, which I don't think was even an option at the time. But even if it was, I would not have wanted to put those super high-end cards in an HGA slab. It just, HGA is new and kind of unproven, and really the problem with them at this point is that so far they are unable to scale. By that I mean they accept 2,500 to 3,000 cards per week, which is great, but they also don't always meet their turnaround times, which is kind of funny considering they have a cap on the number of cards. And then there's also no mechanism, there's no pop report that I've been able to find on the site, and there's no way to check the status of your cards. So when I sent in my first order, there's a couple bigger Mahomes kind of base parallel cards from his rookie year. I had no idea where my cards were for about 15 days on a 10-day submission, and no emails were returned or chats on their site. I even left a voicemail on some company line, didn't hear from them at all. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're submitting with HGA. They've got a lot of kinks to work out, and I don't know what their longevity is. And their resale value seems to be hovering right around where a BGS's is, just from my own anecdotal evidence. I may do a deep dive at some point when I have the time, but for instance, this card in a 9 BGS would sell for about the same as a 9 from HGA. However, a 9 in a PSA slab would probably outsell the both of them. So PSA, when you're comparing 9 to 9, anecdotally again, I'd say PSA is going to outsell just about everything. In fact, this Brady here, if this were in a PSA 9 holder, would probably sell for more. It'd be a more valuable card because folks are just going to want, just inch closer to that PSA 10. it's like there are fewer degrees of separation between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 compared to HGA and BGS with the subgrades. Which actually, total side note, any new companies, any new grading companies that are trying to get out there, maybe instead of copying the BGS and HGA model, and I think SGC does subgrades, instead of going the subgrade route, why not copy PSA's model and just do whole number grades? Just something to think about, just given the resale value. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on the current grading companies. I think, you know, to recap, PSA, still the leader, best for flipping and kind of short-term resale value. HGA is my go-to for sort of base parallels, inserts, and PC cards specifically. BGS, I think it's where I'd continue to go to send high-end autographed and patch cards. And HGA is where I would go if I wanted to send a vintage card, if and when I kind of pick any of those up. Other than that, I would completely avoid SGC. So I hope this was helpful. I know this is a super contentious topic and would love to hear your thoughts if you're watching this video. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm full of shit? Do you think HGA is going to be gone by, gone in 3 months? They won't make it, and so these slabs will be totally useless. Share your thoughts. I'm not sharing this to be definitive. I'm in no way an expert on either grading or reselling, for that matter. I'm no dealer. I wouldn't call myself an investor per se in cards. I just know what I like, and I know what I like to collect, and so these are just sort of my opinions that reflect that. But I hope I hear from you. Thanks for watching, and talk to you guys soon.